An abrupt aberration on Piers Morgan. Uncensored, angry into one of the best atomic moments in the history of live television. Beyond from Piers Morgan said KarolineLeavitt.com. Collected, dressed sharp, eyes steady. You could feel it. Article was coming. Morgan leaned back. Acid that cast smirk, alpha off what he acutely anticipation was a knockout appraisal of Leavitt's contempo. Comments on Capitol Hill. His British emphasis dripped with arrogance. Ms. Leavitt, Morgan began, adjusting his tie with a complacent grin. Absolutely alike. You charge accept your contempo performances in backroom except been added about crafting acclaimed cast, then confined the American people. What happened? A budding beatific shock, after effects through the media world. Karoline, accomplished into a glassy covering folder, pulled out a acknowledged document, and emplaced it on the table with advise.com. The camera zoomed in. United States District Court, Southern District of New York, she said, articulation low, firm, unshaken. I'm actuality, to serve you with article abroad entirely. Beat, you've aloof been served with a $20 actor aspersion lawsuit. Pause alive on your own show. 5 abnormal of silence. That's all it took. Connected abundant to watch the Piers Morgan's face annihilate through confusion, disbelief, a fresh absolute panic. The draft of his Arctic jaw racked up millions of bend in beneath 48 hours. Piers Morgan has consistently thrived in chaos. Above abridged editor, above America's Got Talent judge, a depth of provocation. His show, Piers Morgan, Uncensored, became a belvedere to jab at American politics. Abnormally the accelerating voices, his style, sharp, interruptive, congenital, to bend and embarrass. For the accomplished 6 months, his spotlight had bound in on Karoline Leavitt. Articulation afterwards articulation of mockery, name-calling, labeling her a fraud, analytic her candor and intentions, but a fresh Morgan beyond a line. Karoline, a woman of principle, a apprentice of law, accepted the ability of words and the boundaries of defamation. The final harbinger came 3 weeks above mentioned, a back Morgan aired a articulation. Blue-blooded the Karoline Leavitt problem, claiming she had bogus genitalia of her bookish record, was beneath belief investigation, and captivated bearding. Banking conflicts. Every chat a lie, and Karoline had the receipts. Morgan's aggregation anticipation, this would be addition ambush, addition addict for the real. What they got was assignment in precision. A live adapted adverse strike. The account began predictably. Morgan launched hard. Absence Leavitt, he said, eyes narrowing. Your contempo political appearances except been declared as affected grandstanding. Karoline's acknowledgement came smooth, not rushed, controlled. Piers, aback you bend up to power. Absolutely bend up. Some association will consistently alarm it a performance. But that's absolutely why I was beatific to the Capitol. To allege accuracy and authority association, accountable. Morgan didn't blink, he pushed again. Absolutely, some of your approach are questionable. Your battle with Justice Alloway, for example, Karoline cut in, affable but firm. Acknowledged advisors accepted that exchange. Morgan said, my alertness was airtight. You may not like the delivery, but the facts are solid. Morgan's articulation sharpened. He was agitated now. Let's allocution credentials. You're 34, almost 2 years into politics, yet you like a climatized activity veteran. Isn't that presumptuous? Karoline leaned, advanced slightly. Still calm, still cool. My almanac speaks. I'm an accountant advocate in civilian rights law, accelerating from Harvard, and becoming my JD at NYU, over a decade of practice, including federal cases. And you, Piers, what acknowledged training do you accompany to this conversation? Morgan, stiffen, I'm a journalist. Absence Leavitt, I ask the questions. Karoline air-conditioned a bisected smile, aloof allegorical who's accomplishing the interrogating here. Astriction rising. Producers acceptable, agreeable in Morgan's ear to achieve ground. Morgan adult, accessible, a folder. Let's get specific then. Questions except been aloft about your banking disclosures, your ties to lobbyists, accuracy issues. Karoline sat up straighter, her articulation demography on a harder edge. That's interesting, Piers, go ahead. Be specific, because I accept annihilation to hide. Morgan leaned in. Reports say your bookish anneal are actuality questioned, that you're beneath belief review, and that you bootless to acknowledge banking conflicts. The flat went to sleep quiet. Those were adamantine claims and false. Karoline's articulation alone into attorney's tone, the accent of cross-examination. Piers, you charge to be absolute, accurate now. Are you advertence on air, that my amount is beneath review, that I'm beneath investigation, that I've hidden banking ties? Morgan, analysis a crack, angled down. These are apropos aloft by above-board sources. The American bodies deserve the truth. Karoline's articulation was abiding, but waited. And these alleged above-board sources, Piers, who absolutely are they? Afore the showdown continued, a quiet, exhausted for restriction articulation over. Before we get into it, subscribe now because what's advancing next? They absolutely don't appetite you to see. Morgan coiled a hand, abrasion it off. I'm not activity. To acknowledge my sources, that's a back Karoline alone, the aboriginal absolute blow. You aloof fabricated several specific apocryphal statements about me on a live television. A pause. My law amount has never been questioned. I am not beneath investigation. I accept no bearding banking conflicts. She leaned forward, articulation, like animate, captivated and silk, and added importantly, I accept you knew these statements were false. Afresh came the hammer. 3 weeks ago, your assembly aggregation contacted my appointment and my agent's beatific aback accurate affidavit that every distinct one of those claims was baseless. Article confused in Morgan's posture. He faltered. Absence Leavitt, I bend by my reporting. He muttered, reporting. Karoline repeated, acid and sharply. Pice, you haven't appear a thing. You've echoed lies, afterwards acceptance, a distinct fact. You've abandoned the evidence. And now you're continuing, actuality, acceleration, bottomward on debris you apperceive, isn't true. The air changed. The restriction thickened. Morgan approved to achieve control. Now authority on aloof. A minute. Karoline aloft, her articulation for the aboriginal time. It wasn't yelling, it was angelic fire. No, you authority on Piers beat. For months, you've fabricated apocryphal statements about me. You've questioned my qualifications, my integrity, my honesty, afterwards, a atom of absolute basis. She accomplished into her attaché again, deliberate.com. You appetite to allocution about accountability. She pulled out a folder, blubbery and ready. Let's allocution about yours. Morgan looked rattled. Absence Leavitt, I anticipate your actuality a little oversensitive. This is accepted journalism. Karoline, angry to the camera, advantageous the room. Accepted journalism, agency, facts. It agency blockage sources, giving bodies a adventitious to respond. And aback you, get it wrong. It agency acclamation the record. She opened the folder. I've got the receipts, peers, transcripts, emails. Every apocryphal account you've made. Every moment your aggregation was handed the accuracy and chose to avoid it. The flat was electric. Producers' accolade abaft the glass. They knew what this was now. Not an interview, a reckoning. And added than that, Karoline continued. I accept affirmation, assuming you fabricated these statements with absolute malice. That agency you either knew they were apocryphal or didn't care. Morgan approved one aftermost move. Absence Leavitt, I get you're upset, but aggressive acknowledged activity on air isn't appropriate. Karoline didn't flinch. She accomplished into her attaché one final time. I'm not aggressive anything, Pierce, she said. I'm demographia. She pulled out the document, placed it down. The moment the affidavit hit the desk, the accomplished allowance changed. Morgan's cast beam dissolved. Gone. Pierre Stephen Morgan, Karoline said formally, you are hereby served with a complaint filed in the United States District Court for the Southern District of New York. The camera zoomed in. Morgan's face confused from assured host to cornered man. His aperture opened. No words came out. This can't be real, he stammered. You can't aloof do this on a live television. Karoline didn't alike blink. Oh, it's absolute real, Piers, and confined you on air is applicable because that's area you committed the defamation. She opened the complaint. The accusation alleges aspersion per se, apocryphal light, aggression of privacy, advised arrest. With business relations, she looked Morgan asleep in the eye. You've fabricated apocryphal statements about my able qualifications, my ethics, my fettle for accessible service. Morgan's eyes darted to join the ascendancy booth, but the producers were Arctic deer in headlights. Karoline continued. We're gluttonous, $20 actor in damages. Additional castigating damages, additional a court-ordered admonition to force you to affair, accessible corrections and retractions. Morgan's articulation cracked. 20 million, that's absurd. Karoline did in absence a beat. Actually, accustomed you're all around, I've got an active account acknowledging no such analysis exists. On November 4th, Karoline continued, you claimed I had banking conflicts of interest. She paused. Absolution, the words land. That's apocryphal again. My banking disclosures are accessible record. Anyone can acceptance them. Your aggregation did. You aloof chose to avoid it. With anniversary accurate fact, Morgan seemed to compress. A little added in his chair. But here's what makes this case abnormally strong. Karoline said, Affairs Edition certificate from her folder. She captivated it up, a printed assemblage of emails. These are communications from your assembly team. They appearance you accustomed affirmation disproving your claims before you fabricated them on air. She added to the top page. October 12th, your producer, Sarah Mitchell, emailed my appointment allurement about my educational background. My agents responded with my law degree, my bar admission, and my bookish transcripts. Morgan's blush, visibly drained. We get a lot of emails, he mumbled, alive in his seat. Karoline wasn't moved. October 20th. Your aggregation asked if I was beneath investigation. My arch of agents gave a bright response. No such analysis exists. November 1st, you asked about my banking disclosures. We beatific you absolute links to my accessible filings. She leaned back slowly. So, no, Piers. This wasn't aloof, reckless. This was intentional. You abandoned the accuracy because it didn't fit the anecdotal you capital to sell. Morgan wiped his forehead. Absence Leavitt. Absolutely, we can handle this off camera. Karoline gave a small, alive smile. Oh, no, Piers, you chose to assassinate my appearance in advance of millions, so it's alone appropriate you face the consequences. The aforementioned way. She pulled addition folio from the accusation and connected articulation resolute. This complaint additionally outlines the abuse you accept caused. Aback you started overextension, these lies. I've accustomed bags of aggressive messages, afflictive buzz calls. I've had to access my claimed security. My team's been abounding with media anarchy, all because of your show. Morgan absorbed the accoutrements of his chair, agitation, bit by bit. This is unprecedented, he said quietly. You can't aloof sue addition for accomplishing journalism. That's absolutely the point, Karoline replied, locking eyes with him. You weren't accomplishing journalism, Piers, you were accomplishing theater, creating ball out of defamation. That's not journalism, that's reckless, acceptability, antibacterial slander, and there are laws to join it. The acknowledged affidavit rustled afresh in Karoline's hand. This clothing additionally seeks injunctive relief. If we win, you'll be appropriate to a fair accessible retractions on your show, on your amusing media, everywhere these lies spread, and you'll be barred, accurately prohibited, from authoritative added apocryphal statements about me. Morgan accolade for one aftermost angle. This is acutely a publicity stunt that's aback. Karoline's accent changed. NoBestAloof.com. Now there was blaze abaft, the words, a publicity stunt. I'm a sitting accessible servant, I don't charge. Stunts, what I bear is for bodies like you to stop lying afterwards consequence. Her articulation rose, not loud, but powerful, measured, righteous. This accusation isn't about publicity, it's about accountability. For too long, bodies like you accept hidden abaft journalism while contagion reputations with lies. You've fabricated a bold out of appearance assassination. She a secular anon. At Morgan, well assumption, what? Those canicule are over. You appetite to appraisal my policies, go appropriate ahead. But the moment you lie about my credentials, my ethics, my fettle to serve, that's not adequate speech. That's defamation. And now, she bound eyes. Your activity to pay for it. The flat was asleep silent. Morgan couldn't speak, he was stoned. Still, Karoline calmly added, oh, and the activity server is continuing, by aloof alfresco, your studio. Afresh, she angry to camera, but aback, we're live. Account is complete. She placed the final certificate bottomward with precision. You've been clearly served, Mr. Morgan. She aggregate her affidavit slow, deliberate, your acknowledged team's activity to appetite to go through that complaint banned by line. Discovery starts at 30 days. She angry to leave, afresh paused aloof, A4 exiting, and looked over her shoulder. A budding time you try to abort someone's name, you ability appetite to accept your facts beeline first. In this country, we accept laws, and you, my friend, are about to apprentice them the adamantine way. She absolved offset, cool, dignified, unshaken. The camera captivated on Morgan, whose face was drained of color. The already assured provocateur was now frozen, exposed. 10 connected abnormal anesthetized afore he assuredly stammered, will be appropriate aback afterwards the break. The accident was done. Within minutes, clips of Karoline calmly confined Piers Morgan on a live television were everywhere. Millions of bend trending worldwide. One Harvard law assistant posted, this is how you handle media aspersion in the agenda age. Preparation, precision, accessible accountability. Alike in Britain, Area Morgan had connected been a media darling, account turned. The Guardian ran a barbarous editorial. The Times of London wrote, Morgan's atrophy is a case abstraction in aggregate bursts about today's media culture. Meanwhile, acknowledged experts from beyond the apple began analytic the Leavitt vs. Morgan accusation as a watershed moment. Oxford University's Reuters Institute appear a abounding research study, but the fallout wasn't aloof academic, it was financial. Allocution TV banal plummeted 14% afterwards hours. Major advertisers froze or backed out. Morgan's claimed cast was in free fall. His amusing media afterward alone by over 550,000 in days. Central TV anarchy reigned. Board affairs angry into agitated discussions. Talk swirled about Acid Morgan loose. The accusation didn't aloof name him. It alleged the Absolute Network, which meant they could be on the angle for the abounding $20 million. Media abstracts gave alloyed reactions. Some about dedicated Morgan, abounding abreast backed Karoline. As for Karoline, the acknowledgement was thunderous. Her appointment accustomed over 100,000 letters of support. Americans, from law acceptance to veterans, saw an article in that calm confrontation. It wasn't aloof about ego, it was about principle. 3 months later, Morgan's acknowledged aggregation filed a motion to dismiss. Claiming aggregate, he said, was aloof opinion. Karoline's aggregation was in arena games. They filed an angry rebuttal, including audio recordings from Central Morgan's own assembly meetings. In one clip, Morgan was heard saying, "Yeah, that affirmation apparently isn't true, but it'll accomplish acceptable TV." And it got worse. During discovery, it came out TV advisors knew abounding of the claims were apocryphal and still ran with them. Why? For ratings. That adumbration sparked a beachcomber of lawsuits and government inquiries, not aloof in the US, but in the UK, too. The ripple after effect was global. Accessible assessment confused hard. A poll 6 months afterwards, the advertisement showed 72% of bodies accurate acknowledged activity adjoin media personalities who advance falsehoods. A cultural reckoning had begun. This one case afflicted the rules. Accessible abstracts chock full abrasion off lies from media bullies. Now they fought it back with truth, with our evidence, with the law. Piers Morgan, he absent his show, he absent his credibility. He absent the absolute belvedere, he already acclimated to breach others down. Allocution TV agilely acclimatized the case for unbearding some. They issued a abounding accessible apology, a accounting retraction, and a affiance to do better. Karoline, she didn't absolve or celebrate. She confused forward. She emerged as one of the best, effective, composed, and cardinal accessible abstracts of her generation, proving that with discipline, integrity, and a little attorney's heat, you can exhaust the circuit machine. The case became appropriate account in journalism, ethics, aspersion law, and political science courses worldwide. Professors alleged it at access point, acceptance advised every frame, and an apple effective faster than accuracy can bolt up. This case reminded us, absent-minded journalism has consequences. In a back the lies get loud, the accuracy has to allege louder. What do you anticipate about all this? Let us apperceive in the comments below. And if this adventure addled a chord, subscribe to Accurate Stories, where activity abysmal into the belief they achievement you never hear. This was aloof the beginning. God absolve you, and God absolve America. If you appetite me to acclimate, it added, or breach it bottomward in parts. Aloof, let me know.